So how do you create a brand that truly represents who you are and the products you sell, as well as building a business that you can scale online? That is what this podcast will help you do. My name is Henry Kaminski Jr., and welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast.
Let me just make this statement loud and clear. Jersey's here, Jersey's here.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another Brand Doctor Podcast episode. Today, we're going to be talking about building a brand around legacy. And there is a company out there in Northern New Jersey that's been around for the past 75 years. And I bumped into their website not too long ago because somebody showed me one of the videos that was on the page. And I was really, really inspired by what I was watching. And I have a funny little story for you at the end of this episode that I'm going to share with you. And so I wanted to bring the Chief Operating Officer on the show today to talk about what it's like to be a third generation of this brand and business, and talk about the story, talk about the vision, talk about the culture of what it's like to run a business of this magnitude. So without further ado, I want to introduce my man, Ryan Sanzari, to the show. What is going on, my man?
What's up, man? How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Dude, thanks for taking time out of your day, and because I know you're busy over there, to share the story of the Alfred N Sanzari Enterprises brand. And I have a ton of great questions here for you that I want to ask you. And then we got some fun stuff towards the end of the show that I want to get into. So the first question that I have for you, or could you share the inspiring story about Alfred Sanzari and how he started this business from scratch? I mean, what a story.
Yeah. It's really incredible. To this day, there really isn't a day that goes by that I don't remind myself in some capacity of how this company was established and why we're here today. So back to your question about how it was started. In 1945, the business was founded by Alfred Sanzari, who's my grandfather. He was one of 6 boys, and his family did not have a lot of money. They came from very, very humble beginnings. Extremely, money was hard to come by. We'll put it that way. And something I had mentioned in the video, which I really wouldn't put it another way, is that survival was really what was the top priority at that point in my grandfather's life. Providing for his family, providing for his loved ones, and surviving. So he gets back from the war in the mid-1940s, and in 1945, he starts up a sheet metal company that then evolved into building homes, and the rest is history. But there's a lot of in between, and given the amount of time that we have, I'm not sure how much detail you want me to go into. But 1945, Alfred and Mary, which is his wife, my grandmother, established the company, and it's been quite a ride ever since.
So before that, though, he was shining shoes for like judges and attorneys and those folks, and right there's that part of the story too. Yeah.
So that was when he was a kid. I'm looking at it right now. Our office is at Court Plaza, which is 25 Main Street in Hackensack, and we're right across from the courthouse, which in itself holds a lot of significance, and it is just like really cool. I'm kind of getting the chills just like talking about this, but I'm looking at where he used to sit and where judges, attorneys, kind of the typical like big shot type individual would would stop by every day and get their shoes shined, and he was the young dude shining the shoes. You know,
He had a grind about him, didn't he? Like he had a hustle.
he did, and it was then and there when he was shining shoes where the idea and the ambition and the goal started to take shape as to what he wanted to be and where he wanted to go in life. You know, he didn't, not to say that, you know, there was anything wrong or there is anything wrong with shining shoes, because that's really, if it weren't for the shoe shining, I'm not sitting here today.
Right.
But that was really when everything started to evolve in his mind, based off what I know. You know, everything that I'm telling you was either explained to me, told to me, and my grandfather got very sick towards the end of his life for the last 19 years of his life. He had Parkinson's, so I didn't really get to know him on a personal basis. So a lot of this is from my father or from my cousins and uncle and so on. So anyway, yeah. So shining shoes, he's like, I want to be that guy one day. I want to be on the other side of this equation, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So the next question is, you guys been around for 75 years, a lot of ups and downs in the business. You know, I shouldn't say in the business, but the world. You know, the world, this business has been able to withstand economic downturns and ups and downs and all of that stuff. You know, what is the vision for Alfred Sanzari Enterprises, you know, moving forward? What's the next 10 years look like? Like, what's on the mission board? What's on the vision board for you guys? I'm very curious to hear that.
You know, it's a great question, and it's one that I'm asked a lot. And the best way that I can answer that is by saying, I look at the next 10 to 20, 30 years, however many, as an opportunity to keep the legacy that this company was built upon, and that has kept it going, as you said, we're actually in our 76th year now in 2021, which is just crazy. But everything that has built it to where it is and has kept us going for 3/4 of a century, I want to keep that going. I know we want to keep that going. My father wants it. My uncle wants it. My cousins, everyone who works here, who really is an extension of our family. When we refer to Alfred Sanzari Enterprises, we're talking about everyone here. We're not just talking about the people who happen to have the last name Sanzari, because at the end of the day, you know, I was born into a very fortunate situation. Otherwise, I'm not sitting here talking to you. So I'm very careful with how credit is thrown around and how I communicate these things. But the next 10 to 20, 30 years, what the future looks like, hopefully it looks a lot like the present. But what made this company successful was its ability to evolve, was its ability to take shape and be fluid. And I was telling someone once that Bruce Lee talks about being like water. You know, don't try and be a hard force and flash your way through something. Be like water and take shape around it. Fill it out. Get a sense for your environment, what sort of situation you're in, and you can apply this logic to anything. You could apply it to being stuck in a snowstorm, which we can mostly all of us in the Northeast relate to most recently, and just sort of take it step by step based off what's going on around you. I don't have these, and now I'm speaking personally. I personally don't have these grand plans where, in X amount of years, I want to see us building skyscrapers and this and that. I don't know. Maybe that is in the future. Maybe it's not. But what's most important to me is that we continue evolving and just getting better every day. My father really put it best. He said, we don't want to be the biggest. We don't want to have to associate ourselves or hang our hat on the fact that we own this amount of real estate or we've built this amount or whatever. We want to be the best at what we do. And we want our tenants to feel like they're getting something different with us than they are with just another landlord. So I really want to keep building upon what has already been built and accomplished before me to the best of my ability. So it's kind of, it's not really the best, most exciting, sexy answer, but it's the truth.
No, you know what it is? It's a real answer. And I'd rather have the real answer than some fabricated, what everybody wants to hear answer. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And I'll tell you something about me, Henry, is that I don't know how to, I know how to bullshit, because I was just about to say, I don't know how to bullshit. If my mom's watching, she'll be like, yeah, bullshit. But I really don't know how to express things outside of just how they feel and give you just a straight up answer and be 100% transparent. So yeah, I think you'll find that over the next however many minutes or time.
So this leads me into my next question, because you talked about you and your dad talking about we got to give them something different, right? We want our tenants to feel something different.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe the difference in your services, in your brand, versus other companies out there that are similar to, Sanzari Enterprises?
I would say that this is, our business is one that is mostly I don't want to say controlled. Most real estate companies today are institutional. They may be part of a REIT, a real estate investment trust, where they're huge pools of money that are invested across the country and world into these funds. And then they buy their assets accordingly and then operate from a very institutional level. We're a family-owned business. We're privately owned. We don't have any outside partners. So with us, and I'm not knocking the other model or the other models. There's nothing wrong with that, and I'm always very, very cognizant to respect our competition and appreciate them, as I would hope they would feel the same towards us. But our model is a family-owned one. So what does that mean? Why does that matter? Someone might think it matters because when you build something, you can build it a lot of different ways. But it's a cliche, but we build things to last, because my grandfather, he knew that what he was building, whether it was figuratively, but in the context of what we're talking about, literally what he was building, he wanted to last for generations beyond him. So he had to use the best contractors, the best subcontractors, the best masons, and you can go down the line through the trades, and then the materials used. So the quality of the product is as close in our minds. The quality of the product is Class A, and beyond that, the services that we provide our tenants, we believe, is Class A as well. So those are the two biggest things that I would say differentiate Alfred Sanzari Enterprises from the rest.
So if we're going to do it, we're going to do it to last, and we're going to do it with the premium products, the premium ingredients, if you will.
Definitely. And one more thing I just want to add, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
Understanding your tenant's perspective and empathizing is so important, not just in real estate. I mean, it's important in all aspects of life. Understanding where someone is coming from is maybe the most powerful tool an individual can possess, because you get it. You get why is this person pissed off? Why is this person very distraught? Why is this person sad? Really taking the time to appreciate, respect, and empathize what the other side is going through, whether it's through a lawsuit or through a lease negotiation or just any conversation. So for us, I use this example a lot, and if our team was in here, they would like roll their eyes, like, "Oh my gosh, not again with this analogy." But driving into our properties as if you're the tenant. And I say this all the time to our team here: focus on the signage off the highway. How easy is the building? How easy is it to get to the building? Once you pull in, how easy is it to get parking? If you were a tenant and you didn't know this, as if you built it like we do, what's the experience once you park your car? Then you got to walk to the door. What if it's raining? So really just soaking in everything and understanding where the tenant is coming from is possibly one of the most effective and powerful things not only we can do, but any landlord.
Oh man, I love that, because I teach that a lot in my brand coaching and things like that. Branding isn't just, what it looks like, but it's the experience that they feel, right? And for you to describe this more in an external way versus the way I typically teach it is on a digital platform, right? Like when somebody comes to your website, how do you want them to feel? Are they going to get to the right places quickly, right? So for you to describe it as an actual physical location, that was beautiful, because that is the power of brand that people don't necessarily see, because it's somewhat sub-level, right? So the fact that you guys are actually thinking of this stuff, and some may say, this is obvious, you can't have, people going in circles when they pull into your parking lot, right? But how many times have we pulled into parking lots and the parking lot is a complete disaster, right? The parking spots are 2 feet too short, or too narrow, right? And you're constantly banging your door into, right? Or people are banging their doors into your car. Like, we've all experienced that. So the fact that you pay attention to that detail and put yourself in the tenant's shoes is powerful. I mean, it's so powerful. I wish more brands did this, because then they wouldn't have the issues or the complaints or the bad reviews or all of those things, that come in. Now, some of those things could be blessings. There might be an oversight that somebody pulls up and says, I would love to see this happen, and being open to that, right? Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's take it to the design team and let's see what we can do about that, right? Being open and fluid, like you mentioned before, is powerful stuff. Now, I want to get into another question, because we were kind of hinting around it before. Company culture. You talk about treating the company like a family. How has that improved communication? How has that improved the overall culture of the business? Because before I hire a company, believe it or not, I want to see how they treat the employees. I want to see how they treat other clients. I want to see how they treat themselves, for Christ's sake. Because if they're not treating themselves well, then how are they going to treat me? So talk to us about the company culture and what that's like when somebody steps foot and becomes a team member of the Sanzari Enterprises.
Definitely. And thank you for asking. So if you asked any individual who either worked here or currently does work here, like you said, the word family atmosphere, or the words family atmosphere, may be used probably the most out of any. I would also add to that there is a large emphasis on taking ownership. something my grandfather did, which was just incredible, is his right-hand guy, who was my godfather, who passed away a few years ago. His name was Pat. He had such a tremendous amount of pride in the work that he did. The guy worked around the clock. He was a very old school, roll up your sleeves type guy, not the guy in the suit. He did not wear a tie, out in the field all day, every day. But it always amazed me that this guy doesn't own part of this company. He's not a Sanzari, yet he's putting in his blood, sweat, and tears literally every single day for 53 years. That's how many years he worked for us. So understanding that, for me personally, as an individual who's hoping to lead us, into the next X amount of years or decades, and applying that to the culture here is maybe if not the top priority, one of the top priorities. I want people here to feel like this isn't just the Sanzari's buildings. This is their buildings. When people start working here, something that happens often is they'll say, well, so we came up with this budget, and if we want to do this, are you guys going to want to spend X? And I said, no. Are we going to want to spend X? There's no more you. There's only we. This is your building. This is my building. This is ours. So as long as we're on this team together, we're going to, enjoy the successes, and we're going to have to take the failures as a unit. And I can't express how important that is to me, to avoid the individual aspect, the individual perspective, and to embrace the unified team perspective. So that is certainly something that I believe is a huge part of our culture here. Definitely an open door policy, great communication. People here, we can be shooting the shit one day, or in one moment, I should say, and then literally in seconds, we're back to business mode, and we might get into a disagreement, but things don't linger. We're constantly working, but we're having fun. If you can't enjoy yourself every day, then you're in the wrong line of work. My father said to me literally countless times, if you don't wake up every day and love what you're doing, you are in the wrong line of work. And that includes working for this company.
That's powerful stuff. There's so much there that I hope people got. The one thing that you said before, which kind of changed, I got chills a little bit, because when you change the word you to we, it completely changes the dynamic of the question, right? It completely changed the context, right, of the question. And once you make it about them, now they have this ownership, this sense of ownership. Now, what would I do? And now this passion comes out of them. And that's powerful stuff. This should not be underestimated. This is how big companies grow and go to 76 years, right? How long was Pat with you guys? Over what?
He was it was, I think, 52 or 53 years.
That's incredible, and to have your employees take that kind of ownership in the business, I think has to be highlighted, has to be spotlighted. And ironically, it's a lot how I run my business here. Now I have a virtual team, and I've had a virtual team over the past about 6 years now, since I started to scale my business. I was a one-man band, for many years. And then I said, well, if I want to get to that next level, I need to replace myself. I need to build out a team. Right. And every Monday morning we sit down and we're like, what are we going to accomplish this week? Right. And once that word we gets in the universe, the strength, right? The strength evolves. Very, very powerful stuff. So I got one more question, and then we'll get into some fun stuff. Well, maybe two. What was one story either your grandfather told or your father told that has left a lasting impression on you, and it's sort of your guiding light every day?
That's a great question. A lot of stories are told in these offices. I would have to say that a story that my father has told me quite a few times has been one about my grandfather getting a loan from a bank and meeting with the rep from the bank or the president or whatever. And the rep from this bank said, okay, this is the balance of what you owe, but we can offer you, let's say he owed $1 million for a loan, for a construction loan. We can give you 10 million at this rate for this long. So, keep the million. We'll add 10 to that. We'll add this interest rate on, and then you pay us out over X amount of years. And my grandfather said, if I borrowed $1 and I owe you $1, I'm going to pay you the $1, and let's shake hands and move on, is essentially how the conversation went down. So what does that mean to me? And just to sum that up, we are not we try and stay as low leveraged as possible. We don't like putting a lot of debt on our assets, because, and I learned this for the first time. So I've been here a decade. I just learned this in the last year, because it's easy to understand things conceptually until they happen to you. You'll only understand them to a certain extent, as we all know as people. During COVID, once the pandemic hit, and our tenants, they're hurting. No one is an exception to what's going on in the world today, including us. So our tenants start to hurt, and we start getting the calls and the emails. And like my grandfather said, if you are going to make the investment to make our building your home, where you want to establish your company, then you are my partner. If I don't survive, then you can't operate your business. And if you don't survive, I can't operate mine. Because if I don't get rent to operate my buildings, then I'm not much of a landlord. So by maintaining low debt on our assets, we were able to work with our tenants, because we didn't have this large black cloud hanging over us with these huge checks having to be written every month to lenders. So it really gave us the ability to work with our tenants as our partners, and not just pay us rent, this is what you owe over this amount of year. It's like, if you take that position, then good luck trying to sustain a business over the long term, and good luck building a good reputation with your tenants in the market.
So powerful. So powerful. That mindset that he had is unreal. There's people that are probably watching this right now saying, oh, what should I do? What should I do? How do I approach this situation? By approaching it from that angle and making it about them I'm speechless, because it's everybody I shouldn't say this. I speak in absolutes sometimes, and it's people misconstrue what I'm about to say. Let me back up a second. If more people thought about the other person, if more people stopped focusing in on ego and focusing in more on how can I serve, I think the world would be a better place. And I'll leave it at that, not to get too crazy, right? So let's get one more question in. We'll take a quick little break. for a little message, and then we'll get into some fun stuff. So my last big question is, when the Sanzari name comes to mind for anybody, what attributes do you want that name to be associated with?
Honesty, loyalty, integrity, and quality. Yeah.
Powerful stuff. We'll leave it at that. Right? All right. So quick little message, and we'll get into some fun stuff on the backside of this message.
Awesome.
If you're a business owner who feels your branding isn't truly representing the value that you deliver, check out this free video training that will help you level up your brand's messaging and online presence so that you can start attracting higher quality clients. Visit www.uniquedesigns with a Z at the end, not an S, .net/level up my branding. All right. So some fun questions that I like to ask my guests as we start to wrap up the show a little bit. So these are completely random. I pull them out of a deck of cards that I have here. And so question number 1, what's something you hate, but you wish you loved?
Reading.
Why so?
I am someone who, it's funny because after we first spoke and I knew that I was going to be speaking to you on this podcast and this interview, I started listening to a lot of your stuff because I'm such an a audio reliant person these days, because I want to read everything, but I don't read shit. I just can't just bear down and read. So when I'm walking my dog in the morning, when I'm getting ready, when I'm in the car, I'm listening to audiobooks and things like this. But reading, definitely, I would love to unplug, just sit down with a book and just read. Definitely.
I myself am not a strong reader, and I consume a lot through video, through audio, like yourself. And it's just the way that I learn. There's no right or wrong. It's how are you gonna consume the information, how are you gonna comprehend it, right? And how are you gonna execute on it. So whatever works is what I say. So the next question is, what would you do if you were invisible for a day?
I can go so many ways with this one.
Me too.
If I were invisible for a day, now, does it have to be current day?
No, it could be whatever you want it.
Okay.
This is your show today.
This is going to be kind of a boring answer, but I think I'd like to go back and sit in on a meeting that happened in this office when my grandfather was here. Because you hear so many stories and your imagination and your mind develops and establishes, as close to a conclusion or an idea of what happened and what this person stood for, as you can, to the best of your ability. But to see it, to know, this is more of like a fly on the wall type thing. So I hope this qualifies as an answer, but I would say that.
That's awesome. All right. So this leads me to the next question. What's the weirdest tradition your family has?
So we go and we have, since it's either 1967 or 1969, my father has gone to every Indianapolis 500 consecutively, has not missed a year outside of this past year because of the pandemic, but no one could go. So we'll give him a pass on that year. But we bring as a group, 80 people every single year. And when we tell people who aren't familiar with it, the people who know it, they're like, yeah, the Sanzaris, they go out to Indianapolis. Like, it's almost like a normal thing. To people who don't know it, they're like, you, like Italians from North Jersey, you go out to Indiana to watch cars race in circles, but it's an amazing trip. We look forward to it every year, as we are this year. And I would say that's kind of like the weirdest tradition that we have.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I told you guys in the beginning of the show, I wanted to share something special with you guys at the end. And here's something that's going to come from the bottom of my heart. Okay. You guys may or may not know, but my mother is a Sanzari and part of the Sanzari family. God rest her soul. And as I was growing up, I used to hear tons of stories about my grandfather, which is Alfred's brother. And the amount of inspiration that this man has given me as an entrepreneur. I never met him. I might have met him at parties when we were little. You probably weren't. Well, I'm 40. You're going to be 34. So yeah. So we're 6 years apart, right? So yeah. So I might have been running under his legs as a kid and not even know who the man was. But as I grew up and I heard stories about the way he treated people. My father, I was telling him that you and I were going to have a podcast interview together. And my father started saying great things about your grandfather. He'd met him several times, said great things about your father. And those stories just stuck in my head, you know? And the one thing that's, I believe in our blood is that we have this never give up mentality. And it runs really, really deep. Like, I'm getting a little emotional now just bringing all of this up, because quite frankly, if it wasn't for your grandfather, I don't know if that spirit of the family would be around. And this is some deep stuff. But there's so many things in my entrepreneurial career. I almost lost the business twice, poor decision making and so on. I was, big head, finally coming into some of my own money and not knowing what to do with it, and struggling and trying to figure it out, and just being torn by different lifestyles and not knowing, what path to take. Right. And so there was a few times in my career where I almost said, you know what? I'm going to throw in the towel. And you know what kept me floating? The spirit of the Sanzari family. And I just kept going. And I kept going. And I kept going. And no matter how hard it gets, we keep going. We're like bulls. And I want to share this with everybody, that, you might not have a family with this strength. It doesn't matter. Be that strength for your family, because you see how important family is to us. But you don't have to be leaning on people or having to look for somebody. Be that person. You can be the next Uncle Al in your family. Why not? Right? This man had such a great vision that, look, lasted 76 years, 3 generations later. So Ryan, I wanted to thank you for coming on the show today and sharing all of this insight about the family. It was an honor to finally connect. And I hope that this sparks a relation. I've been chatting with your sister for years now. She used to come to my events when I used to work at the hospital, and she used to drag your mom and dad with her. And, so I've been able to make that connection with her. And that's how actually we started talking and how you're here today. So big shout out to Dana. for making this connection. But I look forward to creating a stronger relationship with you in the future. And I just wanted to thank you for sharing all of this insight. I hope it's inspired people that are listening and watching today. This is what the Sanzaris are all about. And sometimes you don't get a chance to get access to this information. And so I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention and share with you guys, like, this is what keeps me going every day. Listening to stories about Uncle Al and my uncle, who's Uncle Al's nephew, and listening to those stories over and over, and that being the driving force to what it is that we do and why we do what we do and what's important to us as a families. So, Ryan, thank you so much. Let's point everybody in the right direction. So if you want to learn more about Alfred Sanzari Enterprises, where can we send everybody?
Sanzari.com is a good place to start.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Ryan, for coming on and sharing your story. And I got a lot out of it.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing what you did just now. That was some powerful stuff. So thank you.
Awesome stuff. Well, there you have it, guys. Another Brand Doctor podcast. This one we kept in the family today. So again, guys, hope you grabbed one or two insights. That's it. Just grab one or two and start executing on them. And I promise you, you're going to get to levels of success that you could only imagine or may have never dreamed of. So have an amazing day, guys, and I'll catch you on the next episode real soon.